Story 1. Someone said, if you look up fool in the dictionary, there is a picture of you next to it. The person responded, your dictionary has photos in it? Idiot. Story 2. Someone accidentally walked into a man in a shop, and their trolleys collided. The man who was bumped looked up and aggressively said, watch where you are going. The other man deadpanned, you can't tell me with that face that you are not inbred, then walked off as if it was the most normal thing to say. There were 3 of us working in the shop, all standing there nearly laughing uncontrollably. Story 3. Worth sharing, a classic. I am enclosing 2 tickets to the first night of my new play. Bring a friend, if you have one. George Bernard Shaw to Winston Churchill. Cannot possibly attend first night, will attend second if there is one. Winston Churchill in response. Another exchange between Winston Churchill and Lady Astor. She said, if you were my husband, I'd give you poison. He said, if you were my wife, I'd drink it. Story 4. A friend of mine who was 3 years old at the time was across the street with 2 older sisters who were 2 years older than him. They had played a prank on him. He reportedly put on his jacket and shoes, marched outside, turned to face the girls and said, when I grow up, I am not going to marry either one of you. Then he turned and walked away. Story 5. Have you ever stared at someone while they tried to insult you and then, when they stopped, stared just a bit longer, slow blinked and said okay in a monotone? Then you just turned away and went back to what you were doing. They stuttered and got an unsure look on their face. Story 6. A couple of days ago, someone posted a picture of a huge stag on their porch. First commenter, yeah, I have to assume this was a repost. This time of year, deer do not have a fully developed rack. Second commenter, good thing your mom is year-round. Cue the endless fist bump memes. Story 7. Once Jean Harlow introduced Margot Asquith to someone but intentionally mispronounced her name as Margot instead of Margot. Asquith replied, no, dear. The T is silent, as in Harlow. Story 8. A long time ago, my girlfriend and I were in London. We were walking through the West End Theatre District when 2 young women walking in the opposite direction asked if we knew where Cats was. We had passed the theater a few minutes earlier, so I started to give directions. One of the women said, ugh, you are Americans, and they started walking away. My girlfriend yelled after them, well, you were going to see Cats. Story 9. Not really an insult, but years ago my wife used to be a home carer. When she left the job, she kept in contact with her 2 favorite elderly ladies who lived together. After a few years, one of them began to lose her faculties a little and eventually she took a fall and went into hospital. We were visiting her when a rather large male nurse came in to give her an injection into her stomach. When he put the needle in, she screamed and hit him in the face. This mountain of a man felt it necessary afterward to address the incident. He said, Rosemary, I'm here to help. Please don't hit me. That hurt. To which this 81-year-old frail lady replied, well, hit me back. Priceless. God rest that lady. Story 10. When someone you are dating calls you a child, respond, well, if I am a child, that makes you a pedophile. And I will be damned if I am going to stand here and take disrespect from a pervert. Peter Griffin. Story 11. I always like that video where someone off camera tells the kid that his private part is the size of a small candy, and he yells back something along the lines of, that's why your mom's breath smells so good. Story 12. Years ago, in a church Sunday school where homophobia was common, I heard a junior high student say to another, you are gay. To which the other immediately responded, not when I am with your mother. Story 13. I used to get quite a lot of hassle in high school for being a masculine girl. I was very obviously gay but not ready to come out at that point in life, so I went along with the jocks all calling me the derogatory term. Until one day I had enough, and I stood up and said to the loudest one, you know, Jack, I grew up really struggling, questioning myself and my sexuality. I was even strongly questioning it right up until my first year here, when I met you and realized I am absolutely gay. I think it had a good impact because I shouted the last part and everyone was quiet, already anticipating me saying something. Story 14. Me, a young man in high school with a full beard in the early 2000s. Her, a classmate and a Karen before the slur existed. On the bus, she yells, "That guy needs to shave his ugly beard before they confuse him with Osama bin Laden and shoot him." I turn around, look her dead in the eye and say, "And you should shave your mustache." She sinks back in her seat. The bus erupts in laughter. Takes me a solid 10 seconds to realize how funny a burn it really was. Story 15. There is an old comedy sketch where the retort to being called a bastard is, "It is better to be conceived by a miss than to be misconceived." Story 16. From Married with Children, female shoe store customer to Al Bundy. "Stop saying bad things about me behind my back." Response from Al Bundy. "I would tell you to your face, but I only have half a tank of gas." Story 17. You are not a nice person. You know what? I am not even going to argue with you about that. I am not a nice person. Now, what do you want me to do about that? Pull over and cry? Story 18. Probably my friend who had a gluten allergy said, "I'm fat because every time I see your mom, she gives me a biscuit." Before he finished, he added, "It doesn't sound as cool when you tell everyone they're gluten-free biscuits." Story 19. A coworker was making inappropriate comments about women, and I asked, "When was the last time you had sex in prison?" To add, he did serve time for drug offenses. Story 20. It's kind of messed up, but I said it in middle school and will never forget. This boy was making fun of my small breasts. I was very self-conscious about them at the time. He had a limp and wore one of those leg braces like Forrest Gump. I called him Weeble Wobble, and as he walked away, I screamed, "Run, Forrest, run." He never made fun of me after that. Nowadays, I would never make fun of someone with a disability, but it was middle school. Story 21. It's not clever, but it's my favorite. I am raising my sons to know that normal is boring and weird is wonderful. We say it all the time. It's great to be whoever you are. Don't try to be something you're not to make anyone else happy. My younger son came home from school and told me one of the older girls was trying to bully him. She kept bothering him, making noises and faces. Finally, she said, "You are so weird," in that nasal teenage mean girl voice. God bless my boy. When I asked what he did, he said, "I just looked at her," said, "Yep," and walked away because she's just stupid and I don't mess with stupid people. I know it sounds made up, but I'm honestly telling it as he reported it. He thought nothing of it. I've raised a son who is happy with who he is, and that's nearly unbullyable. The next day I asked if she was mean again. He said she tried to be, but he just walked away and hung out with his friends. Now she just ignores him because she gets nothing out of him. I'm so proud of my boy. I wish I'd been that calmly confident at his age. Story 22. I just laugh and point, which really sets them off. Then I keep laughing and pointing. Watching the psychological meltdown is the best part. Story 23. A friend of mine had acne in high school. One day, a student made fun of his acne. So he turned around and said, "Friend, pimples fade, but ugliness goes on forever." Story 24. Well, not sure if this counts, but one day my daughter, the sweet, adorable little 5-year-old that she is, just casually asks me, "Mom, why are you so ugly?" I, very visibly dying inside, reply with, "Well, I guess because we both can't be beautiful." Also, killing with kindness makes them bitter. The more they try to insult you to trigger you, the nicer and more smiley you become. It annoys them more when you don't react the way they want you to. I also always smile and say, "Ah, thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say." Story 25. A female streamer, after hearing some rude behavior from one gamer on her team, said, "I am going to be with your father and give him a child he truly loves." Story 26. Listen, the other day between two students. "I was with your mom last night. I guess she is the second mother to mark you down as a disappointment." Story 27. This only works when you are a generation older than the insulter. "You look familiar. What does your mother look like?" "I might be your father." Story 28. I'm quite proud of this one. My brother was telling my other brother and me how smart he was. He is intelligent, but one of those people who think they are smarter than everyone else, so they have failed to launch and actually do anything with their lives. He then said, "I'm definitely the smartest one of us." I replied, "What I lack in your brains, I make up for in my salary." That shut him up pretty quickly. Story 29. My cousin-in-law once thought she was funny and kept making bald jokes about me. I know I'm bald. There's no hiding it, and I can take the occasional joke, but she just kept going. I turned to her in front of everyone and said, "That's right, I'm bald, and you're fat. But only one of us could get on a treadmill tomorrow and do something about it." Of course, then I was the asshole. Normally, I would never say anything about anyone else's body or appearance, but I finally lost it. Story 30. I saw a post on Reddit where someone was boasting that being left-handed makes opening jars easier because of the thread's rotation direction and the way the body can apply more turning force by rotating towards oneself rather than away. Left-handed people have more force opening jars, while right-handed people have more force closing jars. The reply that caught my attention was from a right-handed person who said, "All your jars are loose." Story 31. The quotes attributed to Churchill reflect how he could change his condition, such as being drunk or overweight, but the person insulting him would still be unpleasant. Roger Ebert said, "It is true that I am fat, but one day I will be thin, and he will still be the director of the Brown Bunny." In response to Vincent Gallo calling him a fat pig, "I used to weigh over 500 pounds, and when you are that large, you hear a lot of incredibly cruel things from strangers. If I were not feeling like a pushover, I would say something like, 'I can lose weight, but it will take a lot more work to fix what is wrong with you.' Anyway, I lost 350 pounds. Took a lot of effort, but I still believe I was right about what I said." Story 32. One I find works well on younger guys is saying, "My mother is taller than you and my grandmother has a bigger beard since my mother is 186 centimeters and my grandmother will." It is true 90% of the time. Story 33. Why do I get the feeling your old man was the one in the lookout tower at Pearl Harbor? A bit slow in the family? Story 34. I was 23 at the time, hanging out with my boyfriend's sister and her cousin, who were 8 years old. The cousin was bragging about having an electric scooter, and my boyfriend's sister replied, "You don't have a real scooter because you're lazy." Story 35. Replying, "Are you okay?" is an underrated response to any insult. Saying it with confidence, looking them straight in the eyes, should make them feel insecure. Story 36. Someone made fun of me for running equipment without reading the manual. I asked if they had actually read it. They said they read every page before operating the equipment. I said I could tell. I have seen you work. Story 37. This is a saying intended to provoke a specific group. Use it at your own risk. Normally, I focus on deflecting and calming situations, but this one is highly effective with the right individuals. By the right individuals, I mean older males, not people of color who may have some obvious racial bias. When this person is angry or upset with you or a situation, say the following loudly and clearly: "Ma'am, you're safe. Tell me about your feelings." Then, sit back and watch the confusion and reactions unfold. Prepare to witness and attempt to prove toughness. It is an impressive display of immaturity that is worth capturing on a recording device. Story 38. Said something to a friend and they replied, "Shut up before I slap the salt off you." I was in awe. Story 39. Reading many of these, they are either overly long or have a superiority complex with pseudo-intellectualism that is cringeworthy. Before anyone criticizes me, I am not insulting you as I assume you got these from someone else. Of course, if I had a better one, I would share it, but I do not and was hoping to find a good one here for future use. Story 40. The parent trap. That's what I call it, at least. If you have ever insulted your mother or father and they just look at you with a mixture of disappointment and disbelief, that works every time. Is the patience to just sit there and let it sink in. There is an awkward silence that develops. You deliver this big insult and they just let it roll off them without a word. It's not because you hurt them. No, they could come over and physically overpower you. Then, after a painfully long time, they just go about their business. There's a combination of silent signals going on. It's a mix of, just who do you think I am? Combined with, so what? And a little, okay, what are you going to do about it? There is also the modified version, and parents are good at this one too, where they let it sit for just the right amount of time before launching a comeback related to what you just said. Story 41. Just because your head is pointy doesn't mean you're sharp, was said moments before a brawl broke out in line at a nightclub in the early 1990s. Story 42. I was being trained at work. A customer came in. I said, "Hi, sir. Here to do some shopping today?" The customer smiled and walked past us. The trainer said, "Of course he's here to do shopping. Why else would he be here? It's not like he's here to use the bathroom." Everyone laughed. 10 minutes later, another customer came in and walked directly up to me. "Do you have a bathroom here?" I responded, "No," and he walked away. I turned to the trainer and said, "I think he was here to use the bathroom." Everyone was serious. I win. Story 43. There's a 1990s Christmas movie called Mixed Nuts about people who work at a suicide hotline and some of their friends. An obscene caller calls and the person who answers is not an employee. So Madeline Kahn's character takes the call, not knowing what's going on. The man basically says something like, "Shut up, Grandma. I'm not busting your cherry." She replies in a deadpan voice, "Oh, and here I've waited my whole life for you and now you don't even want me. Do go on. I believe you were discussing my cherry." Then he hangs up. I use something similar anytime someone insults my looks or my weight. It's hilarious. Story 44. What do you think of this? He is the kind of man who eats a Mars bar upside down just to feel the veins on his tongue. Story 45. Football legend Zlatan Ibrahimovic was asked by a female reporter whether he was gay after an out-of-context photo of him with a fellow teammate, Gerard Pique, circulated on the internet. He was annoyed by the attention the photo received and how it fueled tabloid rumors and lies about him. In response to the question, he snapped and said to the reporter, "Why don't you come to my house with your sister, and I'll show you just how gay I am." The reporter was left embarrassed. Story 46. I am only sorry I do not believe in God. If I did, I would have the satisfaction of knowing that you would burn in hell. From Anthony Lloyd, my war gone by. I miss it so. Story 47. Told a former coworker, who was a complete idiot, "You have great self-confidence. How is that possible?" Still proud of that one. Story 48. A friend of mine lost most of his hair at 19. A couple of random guys at a bar laughed at his bald head, and he answered, "You do know that early male pattern baldness is caused by high testosterone levels, you weaklings? And that was why I had to break up a fight." Story 49. The shop owner's 14-year-old son came in, and he was trying to grow a mustache. He commented that it was coming in nicely, in his opinion. Woman employee, "It is just a dozen hairs." 14-year-old, "Well, granted, it isn't as thick as yours, but I am working on it." Story 50. Forget you. You do, and you'll never go back to German Shepherds. My dad's come back to someone when I was a kid in the 1980s. Laughing out loud. Story 51. If I had captured him, I would let him go again. He will do us more good commanding you soldiers. Ulysses S. Grant, upon hearing that Confederate General Pillow had fled, believing that Grant wanted to capture him. Glad to hear it, for it relieves God Almighty of a heavy responsibility. Thaddeus Stevens, upon being told that Andrew Johnson was a self-made man. I just consider the source. My mother, not intending an insult, when asked why she did not respond to someone who was rude to her. Story 52. It's good that you are in pursuit of wisdom. However, that is a marathon and you are a poor sprinter at best. Or do like Frieza in Dragon Ball Z Abridged when he receives stereotypical good guy lines from unknown Namekians. Simply say a random number after they deliver an insult and continue doing so until they ask what you are doing. Then answer, "Oh, that is a hobby of mine. I keep count of the number of times I hear the same insults, just to see who will come up with something original." Story 53. Someone was making fun of me, a grown man, and said, "You are fat." I replied, Thanks for letting me know because I don't have mirrors or a scale at home. I can also lose weight, but you will always be ugly. He got mad and told me to go away. Story 54. Person 1. Your breath smells bad. Person 2. Oh yeah? Well, your body odor smells bad. Person 1. That explains why your breath smells bad. Story 55. In high school, some person was harassing me. I turned around and said, "Shut up. Being rude is not going to make you better." It feels bad if they had any insecurity about it, but everyone in class laughed, and the person was indeed being rude. Story 56. A child who had lost his mother would not give up one day and told me, "You are so ugly that, when you were born, the doctor slapped your mother." I replied, "At least I have a mother." Story 57. I am sorry. If you are expecting my response, you will have to get it from your mother's teeth. Some tax evader. Story 58. Not engaging beyond silently listening is a guilt-free way to let their insecurities burn them down from within. Sometimes you even end up comforting them afterward. Insults come from anger. Anger comes from pain, and that pain is almost never entirely caused by you when someone insults you. It is something that person has felt deeply throughout their life, and you just happen to be there. Story 59. My son was skating in the street in our quiet neighborhood when a teenager drove by and yelled at him. He said, "I do not take orders from someone who is still making bad decisions." Story 60. I saw a man ask a woman if she wanted a drink. She said she would not want a drink with him even if he was wealthy. He said, "Okay, your eyebrows are messed up anyway." She was devastated and just sat there until her friend moved her away. The man completely shocked her and did not look back. Story 61. I find it strange when people who have not achieved anything start giving advice or openly belittle what you do. You are surprisingly confident for someone with such questionable achievements. And yes, do not forget to discuss this with someone. I am sure they will pretend to care. Story 62. Big brother teasing little brother. Are you crying? No, it's just allergies. What are you allergic to? I'm allergic to you. Story 63. Responding to an insult as if it came from a 6-year-old usually works very well, and the reactions are often funny. Story 64. I've heard, "See you later, masturbator," countered with, "In a while, pedophile," as well as "See you, wouldn't want to be you," countered with "Smell you, shouldn't have to tell you." Story 65. If you believe that you can kiss my backside, well, you better drop your pants, bend over, and start shaving. Story 66. A half amused. What a weird thing to say. Followed by turning away and moving on may not be particularly witty, but it is really effective. Story 67. One man yelled, "Forget you." The answer was, "I told you I am not gay. Even if I was, I would find someone better than you." Story 68. A guy once said to me, "You are not even all that." I smiled and said, "Ah, baby, you are just mad I am everything you cannot handle." Mic dropped. He turned red like a stop sign. Story 69. A man once said to me, "What are you, some kind of homosexual or something?" I replied, "Yes, but you're not my type, sorry." Story 70. In regards to someone arguing with me about Rush Limbaugh, them, you only resort to insults and attacks because you know you are not accomplished like him, and he could beat you in a reasonable debate. Me. He would have beaten me better than he beat lung cancer. Story 71. Not the exact same situation, but Mad Men. I do not think about you at all. I have been practicing this and I am ready if the opportunity arises to use it. Story 72. A cute girl once got mad at me and told me to kiss her behind. I enthusiastically said, "Okay." I will never forget the look of horror on her face. Story 73. For me, if you take every insult in stride and do not react angrily, but rather respond with sarcasm or agree with the person, it makes the person doing the insulting quit altogether. Story 74. Shut up, nerd. It is not creative or smart, but I have always found it to be a hilarious way to shut down any aggressive behavior or anger. Story 75. I like to drink peppermint tea with milk in it. It just cools it down quickly. Colleague, here's your nasty drink. Looks like Shrek's juice. Me, how do you know what Shrek's juice looks like? Colleague, I don't know, I just imagine that's what it looks like. Me, why are you imagining that? You're the weird one here. Colleague, leave me alone. Story 76. I witnessed an argument between the caretaker and my instructor when I was in college for part of my apprenticeship. The caretaker finished by saying, "You're nothing but an old fool," to which the instructor replied, "If I were a fool, you'd be the first one here with money." Story 77. I saw a clip of someone saying to another that their dad should have wrapped up, and the person responded, "I'm surprised you survived a hanger 9 months." Story 78. It's not really an insult, but I was out to get food. When I arrived at the kebab restaurant, there was a long line of people waiting. The restaurant was next to a morgue. Because there were so many people in cars, there was no place to park my car. I ordered my food online and had already paid, so I just had to go inside, get my food, and drive home. There was one free spot in front of a garage. I knew I couldn't really park there, but I also knew I would only be there for about 2 minutes. So I parked in front of the garage and went inside to get my food. About 40 seconds later, I came back out and sure enough, the owner of the garage was standing there, absolutely fuming. I apologized and told him I would be gone, explaining I was only going to park there for about a minute. There was a big crowd watching. The owner of the garage, an older man, was really upset. I calmly but loudly said, "Mate, I can see your blood pressure rising from where I stand. If you don't calm down, there will be a line just like this for you tomorrow." He was so shocked he didn't know what to say. I rode back to my place and had the best kebab of my life. Story 79. I had a colleague who was into Buddhism and would not stop preaching. I do not mind someone who genuinely wants to improve their life, but I will not tolerate hypocrites who use spirituality as a virtue-signaling tool and remain unpleasant individuals. One day, when I was disagreeing with him, he said, "Tainted souls like you will not ascend to a higher plane." I replied, "If that place was filled with sanctimonious fakers like you, I would rather be down here with the animals. At least they are real." Story 80. From when I was young, 2 boys in my class were arguing. First boy, "You are a part of the female anatomy." Second boy, "They say we are what we eat." Story 81. Probably not as cool as all of these, but it lives rent-free in my head. I was in Boy Scouts. An older kid befriended me. We were setting up the tent. Another kid from a different scout troop walked over and started giving us trouble for no reason. Older kid, "Get out of here and stop annoying us." Kid from other troop, "I'm your elder. You should respect your elders." Older kid, "Respect the ugly?" I know it's silly, but it still makes me laugh when I think back on it. Story 82. A friend of mine has a sister who called her overweight during an argument. She responded, "It is unfortunate that your overweight sister is prettier than you." Story 83. Cricket sledging. Player A, "Why are you so overweight?" Player B, "Because every time I meet your mother, she gives me a cookie." Story 84. I find that and can be an effective response. It communicates that the insult is so weak that you are still waiting to hear something actually offensive. Alternatively, it indicates that the thing they have insulted you about is unimportant to you, so they have also picked the wrong topic. Them, "You are a fat bitch." You end? Some will say, "So what?" But I prefer and, because it is more condescending, like you are encouraging them to try harder. You can really throw people off their game if you yes and their insult. Story 85. One I use regularly. Please allow me to apologize. I was not trying to be misleading when I gave you the impression that I do not care. Story 86. My boyfriend and I were arguing, and he said, "Your choices in life are so weird." I responded with, "You are one of them." He was silenced immediately. Story 87. When it comes to getting girls, you have no taste. Your breath stank. Here is some toothpaste. I am the best rapper, and it has been like that for a while. Your mom calls me toothpaste because I put white in her smile. Story 88. It is good that you are in the pursuit of wisdom. However, that is a marathon and you are a poor sprinter at best. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.